The PRovoke Podcast, brought to you by PRovoke Media and produced by the international broadcast specialist Marketeers.
Hello, welcome to the PRovoke Media Podcast. I'm Diana Marzalek. I am with PRovoke Media. We have two special guests with us today. First is Sonja Stills, who is the commissioner of the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference. Welcome, Sonja.
Thank you, Diana.
And we also have Sam Stark, who is an executive VP from the agency 160/90, and Sam works closely with Sonja, and we're going to talk about sports.
Thank you for having me on.
My pleasure. My pleasure. The first thing, Sonja, maybe you can fill us in a little bit. We should let everybody know about the nature of the conference, that it is heavy on HBCUs. From my own research, it looks like all but two of the schools in the conference
Have football. I have football, yes.
Oh, and football. Okay. You tell me. I'm not going to tell you anymore. You tell me.
So the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference, we're actually, I think, in our 53rd year of existence. We are made up of 8, and I call them the Elite 8, historically Black colleges and universities. And our footprint runs from Delaware all the way down to South Carolina. Let me knock on wood for right now. With the ever-changing landscape of athletics and conference realignment. But in our conference, we have high academic institutions. We have, starting from the top, Coppin State, that's in Baltimore, with Morgan State. We have Delaware State. We have the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. Norfolk State, which is right here in Norfolk, which is where the conference office is. We have North Carolina Central, and we have Howard University, I forgot DC, and then we have South Carolina State out there in South Carolina in Orangeburg.
And
so,
the alliance, though, of the HBCUs in a conference, is that, what's the history of that? Was that intentional?
Say that one more time. Ask your question one more time.
The fact that there are so many HBCUs in this conference, was that intentional?
Yes, that is definitely intentional. We are actually born out of the CIAA, or the Collegiate,
we'll believe you. CI, whatever it is. It's okay.
We're built out of the CIAA, which is Division II. So
Okay.
when we, a number of presidents decided that they wanted to transition to have Division I member institutions, so they broke off from there. And so it was very intentional to be able to provide opportunities for the underrepresented minorities, similar to HBCUs. But we do the same thing with sports, because back then, of course, African-American student athletes weren't able to play at the predominantly white institutions. So we have that place for them so that they can excel and show their athletic ability to the world.
Which is great. So what are this is all new to me. I know that, the Big Ten, I know what it was, Big Ten and all that stuff, but you are D1, you're in a different conference. I'm curious about the challenges you have in the unique position of being a conference of HBCUs. There's so much attention and flack about, football and student athletes and TV rights and all that stuff. And yet you're D1. Are you, what are the challenges? Are you treated at the same level or not the same level? Where do you find yourself in terms of the the academic world?
Yeah. So really with HBCUs, we're notoriously historically been underfunded and resource challenged. And so, up until recently, I think the government and the state governments are realizing and making that right, and adding the funding where, where they didn't have it before. And so when you look at HBCUs, the infrastructure, at some of the schools aren't there yet. And that's due to funding. When I look at, say, that everybody being on the HBCU train and wanting to attach themselves to HBCUs, when the donations come into the institutions, they don't necessarily trickle down to athletics.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because there's a broader need in the university. So through the conference office, my responsibility is to find that revenue to help our institutions. And so I started the MEAC Foundation to be that pool of money for our institutions to help with facility improvements, championship access, because right now our men and women's golf teams and our baseball teams are with the Northeast Conference because we don't have enough schools to get an automatic qualification to the NCAA. So in order for them to have access, they have to go to another conference. So through the foundation, we're trying to get donations in so that we're able to bring them back within the conference and have that another HBCU conference to have access for championships. So right now, there are only 2 historically Black conferences that are Division I. And then there are only 2 Division II historically Black conferences and historically Black conferences on that level. And so we have to work together to be able to provide those revenues, work together so that we can take back the HBCU name from third parties so that we're able to give that money directly back to our institutions.
When you say third parties, you're talking about conferences or?
Promoters.
I'm sorry?
Promoters.
Oh, promoters.
Yeah. So everybody is, we get constantly bombarded with classics or classic football games, or they want to put on this event, or all-star event, and the money doesn't benefit the institutions nor the conference. It goes directly into their pocket. And so we want to make sure that that money goes to the institution so that they can begin to do what they need to do to improve the well-being of our student athletes. That's the most important thing. We want to make sure that we give them a good experience. We want to make sure they have the best facilities and the best equipment to do what they need to do, because even though we haven't had the best resources, we are notorious for doing what we do with what we have.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Which is pretty amazing. I mean, you're talking about foundations and all, and I know that all schools have different fundraising arms, but particularly in sports, college sports, you got the big boosters. I mean, some of them have these very, very deep pockets, and it just shows some of the challenges you have as a different kind of institution and actually having to go fundraise to take care of your athletes.
Absolutely. Yeah, we don't. It is funny. We can't call in a booster to say, hey, I need $35 million for name, image, and likeness for our students. We can't do that. We don't have that. So we have to really get in there, work with our corporate partnerships to help, fund the things that we want to do with our student athletes.
Is that getting easier? And Sam, please chime in. I know that you have worked together on some of these communications efforts and getting over some of the challenges that you have had in communications. I mean, are things getting easier? Are people becoming more aware of not only the schools, but the importance of the schools and your mission and your football team?
Yeah, I think through our work with 160/90, they have really given us the visibility that I think we haven't had before.
Mm-hmm.
I think the messaging is very intentional now as to where it goes. So not only does it talk about our athletic proudness, but it also talks about the great institutions, academic institutions that we have. So if you don't go for athletics, because then you go for academics, but usually athletics is that front porch to the rest of the university. And so in order for us to do that, we need to continue to provide those opportunities, those platforms to let people know who we are. That way, that will help us to get more funding coming in.
Yeah.
And Sam,
And
I
I'll
know.
just add, yeah, I was just going to add on top of that, that I think that, we started working together in 2021. The first thing that we did together was a bit of a brand refresh. And then from that brand refresh which was really focused in on celebrating the history of being like a cultural staple, but also all of the great things from the excellence in athletics and academics of like, that is the whole piece of it. We shifted into PR. And so supporting and making sure that all the values of the institutions came through in rich storytelling and very personal storytelling. What I'll say from the media landscape is that there is like, it has gotten more and more of interest in the media for sure. So like in the first year that we worked together, 2021 to 2022, I think we saw impressions increase 60%. And then this year over last year, we're already above that by an additional 50%, both in impressions and the number of stories that we're able to tell. And I think that's because people care. I think that and the media then translate and they want to hear the stories of integration, of like innovation and sort of the diversity and all the amazing innovative work, which Sonja will let her talk about in more detail, but gender diversity, diversity of thought, like the impact on local community, that all comes to life through very specific real programming. And so that has been definitely of interest. And the strategy of bringing that to life has been through traditional earned media. You have great outlets who want to do in-depth pieces like the Baltimore Sun on the increase in the Hispanic population, which has gone up like 120% over the last 30 years. I think it's 5% of HBCUs at this point in time. And so there's a lot of activations for that community to make that real as well, and celebrating the athletes that fall within that community.
You mentioned Hispanic community that goes to kids that go to HBCUs.
Correct. Yes.
So they're becoming more diversified, just like as you're trying to elevate the schools in the time of diversity.
Yeah,
they're becoming more diversified.
Yeah. And HBCUs, like enrollments are up across the board. I saw that. I think Howard University, I believe it was last year, enrollment was up something like 60%. So I think that there's a very distinct alignment between what the culture of an HBCU offers you, which is more of community, and the needs of the population right now. I don't know if you saw recently, I think it was in May, when the Surgeon General basically issued a warning about loneliness, and like there is a culture of belonging that I think that you can get, and that is a big driver beyond the excellence, beyond sort of the athletic piece. There's also a deeper level of community, which I think answers a big societal need we have right now.
Yeah, and I think what people might not know is HBCUs are very, very diverse. And even though we are historically Black colleges, this is how we were founded, but we're very diverse. And for instance, at Coppin State has the highest Hispanic population. And that was one of the reasons why we took a look and went back to 160/90 and say, hey, how can we focus in on that community, because these are the individuals who are coming to our institutions, and we want them to come to our institution. We are all historically underrepresented, and so we want to make sure that we provide that family, that culture of being at HBCUs. That's the whole part of being about HBCUs. It's not always about the education that you get, but also the family that you get at a HBCU.
Yeah.
Are you a product of an HBCU or just working, not just working? Are you yourself a product of an HBCU?
Actually, I went to Old Dominion University for my undergraduate degree, and I almost went to Hampton. It's just I did not want to go to summer school. I wanted to work at Busch Gardens. However, I got my master's at Hampton, so I did eventually get there, and I worked at Hampton once I graduated with my graduate degree. So I've always been with a HBCU for my career.
Well, and clearly the track is treating you well, because to be a woman commissioner at that at the same time, you're rising high. Tell me about that. Is it tough being a female commissioner in the sports world?
It is, it's interesting. It's interesting. Yes, it can be tough, because majority where you are, you're going to be maybe the only female in the room. I may be the only African American female in the room. So it has its challenges. You know, I know I was at a football game and with my deputy commissioner, and they go to him instead of going to me.
Of course.
You know, that type of thing. And then, I always say they try to mansplain. I'm like, I've been in the business long enough. I know, just get to the point. What do you want? It is that type of thing. So I think the challenges that I have are not unique to sports. I think that's what all of us at this level have to deal with. And we got to come in there and hold our own, and let them know, we are educated, we are experienced, we know what we're doing, and we can do just as well as any man in the field.
Yeah, and you should also give the credit of, you've made it all very real too. I mean, within her organization, top 3 communications executives for the conference are female. Over half of the administrative staff is female. And then within the MEAC itself, then you have 5 athletic directors who are female. Like that is really incredible. And I think, like, for us as the communications firm, just you being out there, Commissioner Stills, and the ability of telling your personal story and the vision that you set, like that's why we've had the success that we have. And also initiating programs that mean something, like the 50th anniversary of Title IX. Everyone rallied around it. There were 50 individual stories that were pushed out across to just shine a light on like those people who made a difference as things have changed. I think one example of that was like the 1982 Howard's women's basketball team, first MEAC basketball team to ever make it to the NCAA. So just celebrating that so that people can see it and live it and breathe it, like that helps to make the value which the MEAC has, which is increasing a focus on women's participation in sport. Like that makes it real.
And then, with I call them the Fab 5 female athletic directors, they are all 4 of them are over football programs. That's tremendous. All we need is the opportunity. We can do the job. We just need the opportunity. And our council speaks to that by the hiring that they've done recently. We have a lot of first in their positions, and which is tremendous. And not only do we have the Fab 5, the ladies that we have in the office, but our governance, our chair of our council, Dr. Heidi Anderson from UMES, female. Our president of the MEAC is a female, Deborah Johnson from Howard University. Our chair of the athletic directors is a female, Melanie Webb from Norfolk State. And then we have Nicole Person from Coppin State, who's over our senior woman administrator. So our leadership is female.
Yes,
so
it's unusual in any sort of world, but in sports, it's
rare. So we want to, and that's why we really want to shine a light on the opportunities that are out there for us. We just got to rise to the occasion. We have to take on those opportunities where we may say, I don't have all the qualifications. A man will do it no matter if they got one of the qualifications, but a female will look and I got maybe 5 out of 10 and won't do it. So we just let's go for the opportunities that are there. You never know what can happen.
That's great. I want to ask you before I let you go to your busy life, clearly, esports.
Yes.
Esports. I did not know that was a college thing. I know that esports is a thing, but not a college thing. Tell me about that.
So for HBCUs, we're behind with esports. Esports has been, yeah,
My
right.
bad.
And I didn't know that either. So the previous commissioner, Dr. Dennis Thomas, he had been floating the ideal around. And so when COVID hit, we were like, okay, how can we engage? Because there's no sports, but how can we keep everybody still engaged? So esports was going to be like a revenue generation, but a way to stay connected. About time we got into it, the presidents and chancellors saw it more as an opportunity to be a conference initiative, so that it trickles from turning the common game player into a team player, and building the labs and the infrastructure so that we have these programs on our campus. And so we are running as if in the future that we're going to be a HBCU esports varsity conference. That's our plan. That's where we're moving towards. And so we're still in the infancy stage. We have, out of the 8-member institutions, 5 of them have labs. We still have to get the last 2. So we're still in that building. We were fortunate enough to start our seasons last year. Well, the year before. And this past year at our basketball tournament was our first in-person championship for esports. This is tremendous. Esports is $1 billion industry, but there's a lack of diversity. So we want to be that pipeline of diversity into that community, and to be able to bring that awareness of, no matter what your educational background or your degree is, it can tie into esports, from broadcasters, and they call them shotcasters as esports, behind the scenes, marketing, music, athletic training because of overuse of your hands and your fingers. So there's so much that can be integrated into esports, and it's fun.
Best part. Well, it's such a pleasure to talk to you, and I personally have learned so much in the last half hour. So, and I'm sure there's plenty more to learn. But I appreciate your time, and Sam, you as well. And good luck as we forge ahead. Thank you
for having me.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
You've been listening to the PRovoke podcast, brought to you by PRovoke Media and produced by the international broadcast specialist Marketeers.